Thank you, sir. I'm very pleased to support the motion today and acknowledge Foster and Kinship Carer Week, and I join with the member for Elder and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition and the others who have spoken in encouraging all members of our community to consider the opportunity to serve our community and particularly provide love that is so much needed in the hearts and the lives of some of our most vulnerable young South Australians by taking up the opportunity of foster and kinship care. I think that the way in which foster carers and kinship carers support our state's well-being cannot be understated. There are some 4,000 children in South Australia or thereabouts in foster and kinship care, formerly known through the Department of Child Protection, as well as those in other informal relationships. And that number of people probably underscores the significant number of children who do need support. And for the hundreds who are in that institutional care that the Deputy Leader of the Opposition identified, they are supported by staff who work hard, no doubt, in very difficult and challenging roles. But the opportunity for a child, for a young person, particularly under the age of 18, to be in a home environment, in a family environment, where there is the opportunity to feel love and safety, is tremendously important and is nigh on impossible to replicate in an environment where somebody is working their shift there with all the care and dedication that they can provide while doing so. Those foster and kinship carers have that opportunity to play that role in a child's life. The motion is broadly worthy of support, and obviously we'll support it. I do, however, want to highlight there are positive endeavours by people in this House on both sides of politics who, when given the opportunity to serve in government, have done their level best to support the child protection system and indeed with the opportunities and the safety and the hearts and minds of those young people at the forefront of their considerations. This government has put in place some measures, and of course the Deputy Leader has outlined those where we support them. The former government also worked hard in this space and put in place some reforms that were very important. I know the former Minister fought hard to ensure that we could lift some foster care payments until children turned 21, because the opportunity that home could provide them for a few more years, sometimes a home that didn't have a lot of money for a few more years, was tremendously important as that child was moving past school into young adulthood. I think that some of the other measures that were important, indeed acknowledging that Catholic education, at the encouragement of the former minister, and a number of other non-government schools now provide scholarships to children under guardianship. And I think that the way in which foster carers, potentially whose own children may go to a non-government school, when they have a foster child in their home, that can be a tremendously stable thing. Of course, if a foster child is in a school already, ideally you don't want to dislocate them from that school if that relationship is prospering. But there are 4,000 children we're talking about and 4,000 unique stories, and each one of them needs to be taken very seriously. So the opportunity for a couple of hundred scholarships per year provided by Catholic and a couple of non-government schools as well, a few independent schools as well, does make things easier for some of those families, does make the life less stigmatised, more normal, and a greater sense of location for some of those children. And so I acknowledge that work as well. I think just want to briefly mention some of the organisations. I think the member for Elder talked about puddle jumpers and treasure boxes. There are many non-government organisations that work in this space, and I highlight, as the Deputy Leader did, the work of Grandcarers SA, the volunteers, the staff, the board there, who work very hard, particularly for that cohort who may not even necessarily be receiving foster care payments. I think kinship care accounts for about 1,000 more children in South Australia than foster care does. Now, there are different circumstances in which that can be categorised, but of course the understanding that those, whether they're grandparents or aunts or uncles or other kin, play in those children's lives, and the important recognition that the department and government and we as parliamentarians should give them is worthy of being highlighted. And I appreciate Grandcarers SA for the professional way in which they advocate for the cohort of grandcarers in our state who do such a tremendous job, and I express my appreciation to them for that work as well. So in that, I encourage all members of our community to consider the role that they could play as foster carers, kinship carers, respite carers, or other sort of carers to support those children. There is, in my heart, a desire for government to provide a framework for all South Australians to live lives when they are supported to fulfil their potential. Vulnerable young children who have done nothing to contribute to the unfortunate circumstances in which they find themselves are, I think, at the heart of where government needs to be considering providing that support for young people to fulfil their potential. Vulnerable young people in this circumstance, particularly those who have been unable to be placed in stable family environments, are at much greater risk of incarceration later in life. They're at much greater risk of unemployment later in life, or not being able to fulfil their potential. So continued endeavours by government, by organisations and NGOs such as Grandcarers SA, and by every individual in our community who can, each and every one of them, play a role that they can find time for, is the way to support those children and young people to have their best lives, and I support, therefore, that intent.